Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to make this cute 2-yard quilt. This is definitely a beginner pattern. It's very easy. The quilt measures 45 by 45 inches square. It's about the size of a small lap quilt or a large baby quilt. What you'll need to make this quilt is 1 yard of a darker fabric, a yard of the lighter fabric, 3 yards of backing fabric and batting, 3/8 yard binding fabric, coordinating thread, ruler or cutting tools, and a sewing machine. After washing and pressing your fabric, you want to cut it into 10-inch strips. So first I cut off the selvage, and then I count 10 inches. I'm doing 10 inches exactly, and I'm making strips using the entire yard of the dark fabric as well as the light fabric. After you've made the strips, take them and cut them into 10-inch squares. There's different ways you can cut them. You can put multiple ones or fold them over, but as long as you have 10 by 10-inch squares of both fabrics, you should be good. Here I am doing the same with the white fabric so that I'm making 10-inch squares of it as well. When you're all done, you should have 12 dark squares and 12 light squares, so a total of 24 10 by 10-inch squares. Now it's time to make the half square triangles, so take one dark square and one light square and place them together, right sides together. Once you have them like that, you'll need to get your ruler and square off the block on your cutting mat. Using your ruler, go from corner to corner diagonally and mark with a pen or pencil. It doesn't matter. This mark will not be seen on your quilt, and just mark that diagonal line. And do this on all of the squares so that you have 12 of these pairs of squares with the mark down the diagonal. Now it's time to sew, so take your squares to the sewing machine and place your foot on the line that you drew so that you are making a stitch about 1/4 of an inch away from the guideline that you drew, and then just sew that line using that drawn line as a guide. So now just do the same on the other side, again using the drawn line as a guide. So now that you've sewn it on both sides, you should have one line of stitches on each side of that guideline. Now just cut on the guideline that you drew just using scissors. You could use a rotary cutter as well if you want. I find it easier to just use scissors. And then once you've cut all of that, then you will have 2 half square triangle blocks. Once the block is done, you want to iron it towards the darker side, press it so that it's nice and flat, and then you want to make the last block. I just took 3 scrap pieces from when I was cutting earlier and made a 3-piece block. Here I'm cutting it to 4 inches, but you're actually going to want to cut it to 3 7/8 inches, and then all 3 of them, and then sew them together. Once you have your half square triangle blocks, they are going to have these dog ears and they're always a little bit wonky, so you're going to want to square them off as well. So you should now have 25 blocks, and this is how they should be organized on the quilt. I also have a diagram available in my printable PDF version of this pattern that's available on my Etsy shop. So what you'll need to do is you'll start with the top and you'll just sew those 5 blocks together, then the next 5 I do it in rows, and then sew the 5 rows together. So I'll take you into that a little bit more deeply. So looking at this block, you'll just take the block and fold it over the other one, right sides together. You can pin right there, but you definitely want to at least sew right there. I don't always pin. And then just open that up, press it, and then do that for the next 2, and then sew those to the first 2. Then sew the last one on, and then you should have 5 strips that each have 5 blocks. Here are all the strips. You want to press the strips so that the seams are open. Pressing is ultimately very important if you want a neat looking quilt. So here, just take the seams and press them open. So you'll take your iron and press it where my finger is. I couldn't get a good shot of me using it on the iron. And then you're going to want to sew these strips all together so that you can finish your quilt block. So when you're sewing them together, you're going to want to make sure you're lining up the seams. So here it is all nicely pressed. And then what we want to do is line up these seams and pin them so that when we sew them, they stay together and look nice and clean. So this is where I mean right here where all of the blocks line up to make 4 corners. That's where you want to make sure that it's lining up. So you want to have the strips right sides together and match up the seams. So there's this little bit of seam allowance that you pressed open, and you want to match each one up with the corresponding one on the other strip like this. It sort of makes like an X when you match them, and that's when you try to nest them together so that they all, nest easily, and then just pin it right there. I always pin, and this is a little bit easier to see here where it's sort of making 4 corners. So just pin that. I always pin at each of these seams as well as in between them so that it doesn't, come apart. So once you've sewn all of those together, the quilt top is done. Just press open the seams and then baste and finish your quilt how you like. So here's the finished quilt. I think it turned out really cute. I ended up giving this one to my coworker who just had a baby. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you would like, there's also a PDF version of this pattern that is available on my Etsy shop. The link is in the description or in my channel bio. So this is my first video. I'm hoping to post more tutorials and quilting videos, so please like and subscribe to see more. Thank you.